Hello and welcome to Likhawat. I am Gautam Chaube, your host, and this is a show about the books of Bharat. The book this week is Prapti, a collection of Uriya short stories that won the Sahitya Akademi Award in 2016. Prapti is a Sahitya Akademi Award winning collection of Uriya short stories. The stories in the collection are attempts to examine the deeper truths of life through subjectivizing the external realities. A range of factors, such as multitude of themes, viewpoints, and characters, make this anthology a memorable one. Paramita Satpathy, its author, is an eminent Uriya fiction writer and translator who writes prose, fiction and poetry in Uriya and non-fiction in Uriya and English. She has 7 Uriya story collections, 3 novels, 1 collection of novellas and 1 poetry collection to her credit. Her works have been extensively translated into various Indian languages. Besides the Sahitya Akademi Award, she has been the recipient of Odisha Sahitya Akademi Award, Bharatiya Bhasha Parishad Puraskar and Bhuvaneshwar Book Fair Award, among others. Joining us today to discuss the book is the author, Paramita Satpathy. Hello Paramita ji, welcome to the studio. So glad to have you here.
Thank you. I am too.
Paramita ji, we were born in a literary family. Your mother is an acclaimed Uriya poet and she also won the Sahitya Akademi Award. Your father was a major literary critic. And I'm told that you grew up at a place surrounded by books. You had a library of your own. So at what point did you decide that you want to follow in their footsteps and write a book of your own? And if I can add another question to that, besides your parents, who were the people, who were the writers, Uriya writers that inspired you the most?
Well, you have very correctly said that I had grown up with the books. Maybe the books have, inspired me to write, and I have seen always my parents being, engaged into some kind of a literary conversation, writing. There are poetry meets, poetry recitation at my place. So many, important poets and writers congregated. So that was probably something that has aged kind of an inspiration, if you say. But mostly the books I read, probably in those pages, I had maybe very unknowingly, my imagination took a little bit of flight probably. And yes, around that time when I was with words and pages and phrases, so something was getting written probably somewhere in the mind or in the ether or whatever. And as far as you said that the writers who have influenced me,
right.
From the beginning I have read mostly the books in translation,
right.
All the world literature mostly, and slowly the world literature in original and the Odia literature of that time. I have been influenced by so many writers, what to tell you. But at that particular time, I was reading Kanhu Charan, Gopinath Mohanty, Ganu Charan Mohanty, and then Surendra Mohanty, Manoj Das.
Right.
Those are the Odia writers who are kind of cult for us that time. And I was not much into poetry at that point of time, very
right.
young age, tender age of 11, 12 years. 12. Whether I understand or not, I used to. Even I used to read all the world classics in translation like War and Peace and then
right.
Anna Karenina at that age. So,
right.
So I still believe that I have to understand them in different phases of my life. At that particular point, probably. But what was engaging was to go on reading. So I must tell you that Hemingway I read that time, many writers. So I must tell you that I have been influenced in some kind of influence from everybody that have read.
From Odisha to continent and European.
Anywhere. I was very voracious
right.
for that matter.
Right. Ma'am, compared to Prapti, the book this week is a collection of short stories. And compared to other forms of writing, the short story is of a more recent origin. It originates sometime in the late 18th, early 19th century. And although in India we have a long tradition of kissas and upakhyan, but in India also it arrives late 18th, 19th century, even 20th century. Tell us a bit about the short story tradition in Odisha, because for us you are the representative figure of Odia literature. And tell us about some of the important Odia short story writers that you've come to admire over the years.
Gautam, do you really believe that stories have come to India very late? What about Panchatantra, Vishnu Sarma, then Singhasan Battisi, Betal Panchavinshati? We always had a
What I mean is in the modern form that we see.
Modern format, yes. Modern format probably, the poetry came little earlier than the stories, and the stories have arrived little later, yes, 18th and 19th century, and that was the time also in India also we have, in Odisha, India probably little earlier, and in Odisha we had Fakir Mohan Senapati, as you must be knowing, being a scholar of literature. So it is around 19th century, mid-19th century, we had our first short story in Odia, and after that
which is Revati.
Revati. Right. There are few short stories, but this is very remarkable. So that is why they say it's the first. But before that also he has written something.
Right.
But this, coming to picture, coming to people reading it, getting it published at that point of time, and there was quite a flight after the writing of that short story. There are quite a few writers who had contributed around that time. Bhagavati Charan Panigrahi, and then Shikar, you must have heard of that movie that
a film was made on the
made on Mrinal Sen's Mrigeya, with
starring Mithun Chakravarti, for which he won a national award.
Yes, and Mamta, so that was quite a good writing that point of time, and slowly patriotism crept in. So a lot of stories were written around that time about how science and technology is changing. Whatever science technology was there at that point of time, changing life, and
patriotic stories about nationalist movement.
Yes, lot, and
anti-colonial struggle.
Yes, and few women have also started writing stories like Sarala Devi, Kuntala Kumari Sabat. So till independence, you can see a great divide in Indian literature also, till independence and after that. So around that time, lot of patriotic things or writings, and lot of writings with about the misery and the oppression and the exploitation of human being. That also again is predominant everywhere later after the independence also. But that had a different kind of theme altogether. And after independence, we have so many, as you said, Kanu Charan has written stories, Gopinath Mohanty has written stories, Surendra Mohanty, then Manoj Das has been a cult in storytelling. Then we have very fine writers like Ravi Patnaik, Akhil Mohan Patnaik, and we have then the next generation, Jagdish Mohanty and his wife Sarojini Sahu, Ashwara Mishra, and you can say that I'm also coming after that probably. And till now the short stories tradition in Odisha is very, very strong.
Very strong.
Yeah, I guess it is that also in the pan Indian level, mostly in Indian languages, though in English probably not many are written in the country. A lot of novels are coming out.
But in the Bhasha Sahitya, short story is a major genre.
Yeah.
Also because these were published in periodicals.
Periodicals.
Yes.
Yes.
But going back to the book of the week, Prapti, what is remarkable about the book is the easy assurance with which you move through locations. Some stories are set in upscale cityscapes, and then there are stories that take you to slum, deep into a village. And also you speak in many voices. You speak as a woman, you speak as a girl. In fact, in a story called Scarred, you speak as a man too. So tell us about the overall design of this wonderful collection, and what are the themes that you believe offer this anthology kind of a coherence?
Actually, Gautam, when I started writing it, it's a little different and little departure from the kind of short stories I was writing till that time. This is a kind of a long stories. You can see that most of the stories, expand up to 25, 30, 35 pages, and it's not on a single incident or a single situation. It's basically sometimes spanning over a whole period of life, and probably it could have been expanded to novellas or novels also. So we started with the title story, Boundless Moment, the Odia, and in Hindi the title is Prapti. So it got published in a periodical as a very, very long story. But and somehow it was got a lot of raving reviews around that time, and that inspired me to write on the journeys of women mostly at different situations, different strata of, in the society, different kind of experiences they have, and different kind of age group, you know, from a 10-year-old to the oldest, you know, that lady who is, you have
tears.
talk about tears, or you talk about scarred, you know, the
Right.
mother who is a grandmother also. So I believe the basic theme is journeys of women at different strata, in different strata, in different times, different kind of life, different kind of perception. Even the first story is about a princess who
Right.
became a queen. I mean, that is
Right.
not of the current period, but you know, kind of the, but feeling is current. So
In fact, I
probably
have a question about that, but I'll come to it later.
yes.
Many of the stories, in fact, deal with the tribulations of urban life as I see it. And in some of the stories, two stories come to mind immediately. One is a story called Saheli from your anthology published in Hindi as Dur Ke Pahad.
Ji.
And the story here, A Boundless Time. A friend, a long forgotten friend, suddenly enters the plot and sets off ripples of uneasiness in what appears to be a calm domestic setting. And characters are forced to confront an uneasy past. Tell us about your view of the modern Indian life as it emerges in your writings.
Uh, you know, that reminds me, you know, the first opening line of Anna Karenina. All
Right.
happy families are alike, and all unhappy families are unhappy
In their
in
own
their
way.
own ways. Probably, I don't know how many unhappy or happy families were there, but now there is plethora of everything. So, modern family is, you know, what is modern about it? Modern is basically, you know, the kind of approach to it. But what I always believe that these things have the relationships or families have layers. In the first layer, from to what is seen to the eyes, to the naked eyes, probably is not what is happening at the back. And you and I, many of us have seen those in very close quarters. And if you could really believe, I guess none of this is something, you know, absurd or something fantastic about it. These are all things which are happening around, and why did I pick up to speak about them? Probably in some corner, some chord they find, I mean, they had resonating in me. And I always felt that this is something I must talk about it. Some of them are felt, some of them are, you know, kind of, I have seen in my own eyes, I have felt, experienced. For example, you know, that in the A Boundless Moment, there is probably about that singing that song.
Right.
This is an experience of a friend of mine that, you know, the husband says you will sing this kind of songs, then you are not allowed to sing.
It's a song by a 18th century Odia poet.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Odia poet is saying, singing, Odia poet has written thinking himself to be Radha.
Right.
It's a woman's song. But
Speaking in a woman's voice.
yeah, and a woman in the 21st century is denied to sing this. So these things are
Because
there.
of the erotic undertones
Yeah,
in this,
yeah, yeah.
this song.
So these things are there. I mean, like, I remember a friend of my mother was, you know, complaining to my mother, you know, that my husband is saying, you write anything, write any poem, but don't write a love poems. You know, I will feel very embarrassed if people read it. So those things are there. It is happening everywhere in all the families. So
In fact, that takes me to the second question, the next question I have. While reading A Boundless Moment, I was reminded of a story by Manu Bhandari, a story called Yahi Sach Hai. And then there are also some echoes of another film that I'd seen, a film by Rishikesh Mukherjee called Anuradha, whose story was written by Sachin Bhaumik. It's about a woman whose musical talent is not encouraged by a husband, and then a friend enters the picture and admires her and supports her. And in this story and in other stories as well, we see your characters engaging with the Odia history, the Odia heritage, Odia poetry, Odia drama. How does your body of work, if you think of in all your works, how do you engage with your own Odia identity, Odia songs, Odia plays, Odia heritage in your literature, in your writings?
see, I guess I am quite mesmerized and spellbound with the kind of bounty we have the treasure we have in the form of our literature, culture, and heritage, be it Odia, be it Indian, and maybe because I'm an Odia, I'm writing about that. Probably that relates me to the readers very quickly. But I always feel that kind of universalness is ingrained in that, be it love, death, happiness, and ecstasy, or unhappiness, sorrow. Everything has a kind of a ingredient. And while weaving a story, I would like to pick up those nuances from our folk tales, folklores, then our heritage and culture. It is basically, it comes generally, I guess, again as a scholar of
Do
literature.
you consciously engage with the Odia heritage in your writings?
Uh,
Because some writers do make it a point to include some version, some local flavor, add some local flavor to their stories.
See, I have started writing in Odia, and I'm a writer in Odia, basically, and I always believe that what's wrong in taking Odisha or my place as a kind of a theme or a character or the nuances, and that is quite natural. I believe right now I'm writing a novel on Delhi, but I still have some characters from Odisha who is talking. I guess it is my tone, my my
Right.
voice that is speaking. So
Right.
since Odisha being my, because I would love to write about the food,
Right.
write about the clothing,
Right.
write about the sceneries.
Right.
So that gives me a picture.
And poets like Baladev Rath.
Yeah. No, Baladev Rath wrote about Radha Krishna, but
Right.
now I want to portray a picture.
Right.
Unless I am, I cling to my own culture, or I write about something thrivingly apparent from my own culture, how do I portray a picture? Because if I write something which I am little distanced or
Right.
depart from that, probably I'll feel very unjustified to myself.
Right. In fact, the other recurring theme in your stories is the theme of love, and we find all kinds of love, some platonic, some fulfilled, and some unfulfilled. For example, in the story Tears, this woman is married in a house of horrors, and she spends a loveless life and reflects on her life and the history of rejection, her experiences of being abused and rejected and scorned by her husband. It has rural Odisha as its setting. So how do you look at patriarchy as it operates in countryside, in rural India, vis-a-vis how it operates in urban settings?
As I told you from the beginning, that these are the journeys of women I have tried to create, and some of the stories are real. I mean, this is actually a story of the mother of a helping woman who was working with me. It was her story. Her mother is like that. Her mother also died out of cancer, though we tried our best, couldn't survive, because in otherwise, while living also, she was almost dead. I mean, this kind of situation they go through, I really find it very strange. But still they live and do their duties. In Tears, when the grandchild is crying,
Right.
the woman is running back, kind of thing. So I believe women have this kind of resilience and tenacity. If you bury them under the earth, they will germinate and then become a tree flowering and with fruits. So something of that really has made me very enchanted about writing about women. Not only because I'm a woman, of course, being a woman, I empathize with them more and I connect easily. But that's what I'm seen around me, and what I perceived and extrapolated in other characters like a princess or
Princess.
a queen. But those are the things which happens. This is what I believe. Nothing of, as I told you, no fantasy is there in those stories.
Rooted in real life experiences and observations.
Mostly observations, knowing others' own experiences, others kind of thing.
Which makes me wonder, how do you write so convincingly about slums? This story, Ladki, which has been translated as "And That Made All the Difference," it unfolds from the perspective of a little girl who lives in a slum and tends to a drove of pigs and has dreams but doesn't know what to do with her life. There are a couple of models for her to idolize, but she ends up showering all her love on a pig, Mithi, and she sets it free a day before it was to be sold and slaughtered. How do you write so convincingly about this girl from slum, and what message does the story have to deliver?
Yeah, this again.
Because it also reminded me of another story by Sailesh Matiani called Mahmood, about the relationship between man and animals that we that we raise to sell, to slaughter.
Okay. It was, as I told you, since I have written about women, I have also written about a 10-year-old girl who was brought up in the slum. And slums also, in a way, it has caught my eye and imagination, much of imagination, some of eye, and naturally we visit, go to such places. But I sometimes also wonder how could they live in this kind of situation, but they do. They live, and some of them do well also. That is there. And second is that...
So you write from a position of empathy. You go deep into that space and look at the diversity there.
Just think of a girl, a 10-year-old girl in that kind of situation. And still then she has that, feminine instincts and girlish instincts and motherly forms that she doesn't want to. And the father says that, don't force her, she's a girl. She's a girl, she cannot eat the meat of the slaughtered.
Right.
That means for a girl, it is just taken for granted that she has to be soft. She has to be in the receiving end. She has to be in the...
She suffers quite a few discrimination in the story.
Yes. So
the brother is sent to a good school, and she...
aren't these the truth? And these are the truth everywhere around. Like, maybe in the have-nots families or have-not situations, it is still more rampant because there is still a belief that, girls are useless for that matter. So,
you've written in almost all the genres. May I ask you which genre you find most comfortable writing in? You have written poems, you have a historical novel, you have collections of short stories. Which genre suits your style the best?
I have started writing stories because stories have been, I was very attracted to stories. Not that I started reading stories first, I started reading from novels. All of us do that. And stories are, the crispness, the sharpness of the situation and the kind of thing that, you are able to say something and close it. And then there is a closer maybe with an opening for whatever. It's not that the last word is not always said. And it always has attracted my imagination. And maybe I'm a little impatient or restless, so that I want to...
Or maybe busy with your profession as the income tax commissioner.
Not exactly busy for what to say about it. But when I started writing stories, stories was a very important genre at that point of time. Everybody was writing, and it finishes quickly. And you want to say something, just keep saying this. It's like, in a romantic date. While a novel is, basically a kind of a relationship, long-run relationship. Or you can say it's like an appetizer. You can try many appetizers, but you'll have a 1 or 3 course or 2 course dinner in writing a novel.
What a way to put it.
Yeah, so many things. I can put it in many other ways. So I started writing stories, and stories were received well. As I told you, in Indian languages, many people are writing stories. In between, I have written 3 novels. I'm working on my 4th novel. I'm halfway, and I enjoy writing my novel also, because it is basically floating in a deep sea, and floating all the way. It's kind of blissful situation.
Right.
But my restlessness and my kind of
is better suited for short story.
It makes me get into short stories in between. But since, as I told you, I'm there with my 4th novel. And about poetry, I have only 1 book of poetry, though my mother is a major poet and she has written so many poems. So with poems, what happens? Probably poems I have never thought of writing. It just came to me. The words came to me, the lines came to me, the stanzas came to me. So I didn't have to weave anything.
Right.
So maybe that is why those are written. And that's why they're not coming to me so many more often.
So finally, if you were to recommend one Oriya book to our viewers, would you recommend a date or a long-time relationship, meaning a short story collection or a novel? What would that book be, other than your books, of course?
Other than my book, loved this book of Gopinath Mohanty, Paraja. That's available in English, Hindi, and many other translations. One book is very difficult because, I have eaten so many books so far.
But Paraja is available in Bikram Das's translation.
Yeah, in English translation.
And that's a
it's
good
been-
book to recommend, I believe.
I really liked it. It's just a very, very nicely written book. And I would also tell you, I mean, since you want one book, probably I would let you, I mean, I'll tell you about that book. But if you want more, I have a long unending list.
I'm sure we'll have the time to engage you in a
Sometime.
longer conversation and talk about all your favorite books
Yes,
in Odia
yes, yes.
and other languages.
Yes, sometime.
Thank you so much, Paramita ji, in talking to us. I'm sure our viewers would have loved today's episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gautam, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, viewers. I'm sure you would have loved today's episode. We'll meet next week with a new book, with a new author. Till then, keep watching Sunset TV. I am Gautam Chaube. Namaste.
संसद टीवी के और भी प्रोग्राम्स देखने के लिए सब्सक्राइब करें हमारा YouTube चैनल और हाँ, इन्हें लाइक और शेयर करना ना भूलें।